In the summer of 2021, DeLay and Block visited the Pacific Northwest to document two railroads still using classic first-generation EMD locomotives to pull revenue freight some 65 years after being built for their original owners. On August 3rd, we were on location in Washington State to record a train on the Columbia Basin Railroad. Headquartered in Warden, this Class 3 short line was founded in 1996 as a spin-off of the former Washington Central Railroad, which was acquired by BNSF. Columbia Basin operates 230 miles of track in the rural eastern part of the state. Primarily an ag railroad, the family-owned short line rosters plenty of first-generation EMD locomotives to pull freight trains of grain and fertilizer. We were hoping to document a train running south out of Warden to the BNSF interchange at Connell. Thanks to information provided by a local rail fan, we learned that the train crews typically arrive on site around 7 a.m. to begin their day. Sure enough, we found two train crews on duty, with one working the Viterra USA elevator and another kicking cars by the engine house. We spoke briefly with the train crews and learned that they indeed planned to interchange with BNSF that morning and had a sizable train that they would pull south and deliver in Connell. They would be using EMD GP9 number 1626 and SD19-1 number 651 to pull the train. Both locomotives were built by EMD in 1957 for the Northern Pacific and EJ&E respectively. The GP9 was still wearing BNSF railway colors at the time of our visit. The locomotive arrived on the roster in the year 2000 after being retired and sold by BNSF. The locomotive received a nose job prior to its BNSF railway retirement and now exhibits a low short hood. South of Warden, we're given a bird's eye view of the train. The wide open fields with little to no vegetation provide rail fans with unique photographic opportunities to document the entire length of Columbia Basin trains. Although the area certainly isn't flat, if you're not careful you can lose the train from a distance, which is exactly what happened to us after getting this shot. Attempting to recover, we drove the entire length of the railroad but were unable to find the train anywhere, not even at the BNSF interchange. Needless to say, we were really disappointed as we planned our entire trip around documenting the operations of this unique short line. We decided to give up after driving the length of the railroad a second time and set our sights on Albany, Oregon, situated in the center of Oregon's Willamette Valley. We would arrive trackside that evening in time to record Portland and Western EMD SD7R number 1501 at the south end of one of the railroad's main yards. This ancient locomotive was just shy of 69 years old at the date of our visit, being built in November of 1952 by EMD for the Southern Pacific Railroad as part of an order of 43 units. The classic high hood locomotive was the SP's second EMD SD7 and is one of the last remaining examples in existence. As the Albany switcher was working the yard, Amtrak Cascades train number 501 would pass by on the main line as it made its way to Eugene, Oregon. The train was utilizing a Talgo 8 series passenger set with one of the Ugly Ducklings on the point and a Siemens Charger pushing on the rear. This would be the last train we saw in Albany on the 3rd of August. The following day, we decided to visit Portland and Western's OE yard north of Albany, where another vintage EMD was spending the afternoon earning revenue for the Genesee and Wyoming Railroad. OE yard is named so for the Oregon Electric Railway, which was once an interurban line that linked the cities of Portland and Eugene. Service from Portland to Salem began in January of 1908, but did not extend all the way to Eugene. The Spokane, Portland, and Seattle Railway purchased the system in 1910 and eventually extended the railroad to Eugene 2 years later. Beginning in 1930 and fully in 1933, the Oregon Electric discontinued all of their passenger services system-wide. Electric operations ended on July 10, 1945. Through various mergers and acquisitions, it eventually became part of the BNSF system in 1995. In 2003, Portland and Western acquired this section of the OE main line via a lease agreement from BNSF Railway, which gave the short line access to Eugene. Cars at the OE yard are often switched by EMD SD9E number 1852, which was built in May of 1955 for the Southern Pacific. Like SD7R number 1501, 1852 retains its SP paint wearing the bloody nose scheme, but with Willamette and Pacific logos and markings. The vintage EMD was acquired by the Willamette and Pacific in 1994 and has served the G&W subsidiary faithfully for 28 years. Let's watch and listen to the 567 prime mover as the OE yard crew switches the cars. (1852) was rebuilt or upgraded in the late 1970s under Southern Pacific's R8 program. The rebuild included the removal of all the locomotive's components, stripping it down to its frame, and then the installation of up-to-date wiring and modern components, as well as complete modernization of the car body itself. The modern wiring required a new electrical cabinet, which resulted in a hump behind the locomotive's cab. The demise of many first-generation units resulted from outdated electronics, but thanks to SP's R8 and later GRIP programs, many units that would otherwise have been retired and scrapped decades earlier are still roaming the rails today. Indeed, Southern Pacific got its money's worth out of its rebuild programs, as evidenced by Portland and Western's veteran SD7 and 9s. The locomotive's previous road number, 4397, is starting to bleed through the patch on the side of the cab. The letters SP can also be seen bleeding through on the high short hood nose under the Willamette and Pacific stencil. The Amtrak Cascades is a passenger train corridor in the Pacific Northwest, operated by Amtrak in partnership with the states of Washington and Oregon. It is named after the Cascade Mountain range that the route parallels. While we watched 1852 work the yard, Amtrak Cascades Train 508 could be seen from the air, running on Union Pacific's main line, which runs parallel to the OE yard. The UP line heads north toward Salem, Oregon, where 508 will make its next station stop. Around 7 p.m., we returned to Albany Yard, where the crew for the evening yard switcher had just come on duty. The three-person crew included a female engineer and brakeman, which is a rare sight in railroading. The trio would again use SD7R number 1501 to work the south end of the yard. 1501 is equipped with a Canadian-style E-bell, as are several other locomotives in Portland and Western's fleet. It is odd hearing this type of E-bell south of the border, especially on such an ancient diesel locomotive. As the 1501 cleared southwest Queen Avenue, the motive power for the Portland and Western's Toledo hauler was seen running around their train. The hauler runs between Albany and its namesake city, where the train services Georgia Pacific's large containerboard mill at the end of the Toledo branch. Every evening, the train departs Albany for Toledo, arriving roughly 8 hours later, where it will switch out the mill before returning east. We'll cover the Toledo hauler in a later video. Over the years, beginning in 1965, the locomotive was renumbered multiple times to make room for newer locomotives added to the SP roster. It has since been 2701, 1401, 1530, and now Portland and Western 1501. It was acquired by P&W predecessor Willamette and Pacific, itself a Genesee and Wyoming company, in 1997. G&W numbering directly correlates to the locomotive's power rating. The P&W's GP39-2s are rated at 2,300 horsepower, and as a result are numbered 2301 to 2317. In this case, the 1501 is rated at 1,500 horsepower. reason for the locomotive's longevity is likely due to the fact that it was rebuilt under Southern Pacific's General Rehabilitation and Improvement, or GRIP program, between March of 1979 and June of 1980. Portland and Western's former Southern Pacific high hood locomotives retain gyro lights, which are used in place of ditch lights. Going back to the 1930s, railroads started to experiment with oscillating or rotating auxiliary lights on early diesels and steam locomotives. The purpose was to increase train visibility to motorists at rural grade crossings that did not have crossing gates. The Mars Signal Light Company developed a locomotive headlight simply called a Mars light to oscillate vertically, horizontally, or both to catch the attention of motorists and pedestrians. The Pyle National Company also created a similar gyro light. It is distinguishable from the Mars light in that it produces a circular or elliptical scan effect. These two types of lights were mechanical, which meant they had a lot of moving parts. Over time, the lights would need to be repaired or replaced, which became a costly nuisance to many American railroads by the 1980s. As a result, fewer and fewer locomotives were equipped with auxiliary lights from the factory. On December 31, 1997, the FRA mandated that all locomotives ordered new and all existing road locomotives were to be equipped with ditch lights. However, there are some exemptions to the FRA's ruling. Namely, if a locomotive is already equipped with an auxiliary light of a certain brightness, like a Mars or a gyro, ditch lights are not required. As the evening was giving way to the night, we would record our final train at Albany on August 4th. It was none other than Amtrak Cascades Train 505 with NPCU number 9251 on the point. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy railroading.